Hey guys, I wanted to talk about something a little bit different today. I know it's kind of a random day to talk about this, but I have this thing that I was kind of watching, and I talked about it a little bit on like the End of the Nexus podcast, where I I find that there's a good chance. I know this is kind of weird, but there's a saying, right? That's like, oh well, I'm not supposed to be in this MMR. I'm supposed to be much higher than this MMR. Blah, blah, blah. I don't deserve to be in here. I'm just stuck here because of levers and feeders. There's a little bit of truth to that, and then there's not. Levers and feeders are certainly something that makes it more frustrating and really annoying. And whenever I watch people and I coach them, I point out a lot of times at why they're still making a huge number of mistakes that they can fix. And a lot of times they're like, oh, but if I didn't have these levers or feeders, like this would be so much whatever. And they're like, or, oh, I was just having a bad day and I was making mistakes. Well, I started playing another game that I'm really bad at, okay, which is Overwatch. Terrible at this game. Don't make content for it because I'm terrible at this game. Don't plan on making content for it because I'm terrible at this game. But I noticed something very interesting is that I have a really hard time understanding introspective intelligence on myself. I mean, that's redundant, but we all kind of have this problem, though. Us as humans have a really hard time finding out when we are the problem. And in the background, I've just got a game with Stitches. I'll show you the build or whatever later, but I might end up doing a whole video on Stitches because I personally like this build. I don't think he's that strong right now. That's the only reason that I haven't done anything for it. But the introspective intelligence is essentially our ability to understand ourselves. If we start feeling sick, are we good at understanding what's causing us to feel sick? If we start feeling anxiety, can we understand what is causing us to feel anxiety? If we feel like we have troubles in our lives, are we more likely to find ways that we can change something, or more likely to just blame it on something else? I mean, I've talked about locus of control before, and introspective intelligence is kind of one major piece of locus of control. If you don't know locus of control, it essentially means if you have an internal locus of control, you think that the majority of what happens to you can be adjusted based off of you. While people with an external locus of control say that it mostly comes down to life itself is just mostly random. Well, of course, it's obvious if you're born into wealthiness. You're just gonna find you're born into a wealthy family. You're gonna find more success. That's just a proven fact. And so there is a lot that has very little to do with you. However, no one's ever all the way one side or all the way the other side. The goal is to be further towards an internal locus of control than an external locus of control. Well, that's really hard to do when you feel like the problem isn't actually you. And that's where it comes in with this is, in Overwatch, I go up in rank, I go down in rank. And the part that confuses me a lot of times is I top the healing every single time. At the end, when it shows the cards, I always have the highest healing by far. And I've showed it to people, and I've been like, hey, you know, I'm always topping healing. What am I doing wrong? Like, and it's very difficult for me to ever notice. And then I started really looking at it one day, and I realized every time that I play before 9 o'clock, I win. Every time that I play after 9 o'clock, I lose. And I'm like, is it really just that? And so I started recording my games, and I started realizing that whenever I was playing before a certain time, there were just a couple times where I would jump in one more time and finish someone off. Even though my healing numbers were about the same, when I was more awake, I was getting just that one extra kill here or there. When I was more tired, I wasn't getting that one extra kill here or there. And what was happening is that I was effectively turning these games that were 50-50s into wins while I was not tired, and turning these games into 50-50s into losses while I was tired. And it was so hard because I didn't even realize it, because to me, everything seemed to be about the same while I was playing, but I was too tired to notice that I was playing worse. And then when I was awake, I would notice the things that I wasn't doing. And that's just one major piece of it. I actually talked to a friend of mine that was kind of the same way, except for he would usually just, like, drink. And one of the guys I was coaching was the same way. He would drink, and he went from bronze to gold, and then he would drink and go back down to bronze. Bronze to gold, and drink and go back down to bronze. he was one of the few people that would say, hey, I don't belong in this rank. And I'd be like, I know it, because you can always get back out of this rank whenever you're sober. I said, you just need to not play while you're drunk. And he's like, but when I'm drunk, I don't care about that anymore. And that's the issue, is when I'm tired, I don't think about that. I don't care about that. And I'm just going to still get hit anyway. I'm still going to be upset anyways. And I showed this game. I just picked a random game to be in the background. But the hooks that you can get, it's like the small differences is all it takes. One extra hook could be the game changing. And that one hook could be pretty much just simply you being awake or you not being awake. And it's such a small thing, but it adds up. And that's not the only thing. There's a wide variety of things that are based on introspective intelligence that people just don't get. They don't understand that they're missing that much because they can't understand it while they're in that state. Try to find the states where you do really well. Same with tilt. Tilt is something that's really hard to tell when you're tilted. And a lot of people say, I'm not tilted, when they're actually tilted, because while they're tilted, they're too frustrated to look at their own play, because they're so focused on other things. And this is pretty straightforward right there. So I just wanted to kind of share that and explain that it is possible that you are actually much lower than the rank that you should be at. But the problem is that you are not playing consistently. You're playing good. When you play consistently, you're moving up, so it feels like you're doing really well. Then something happens. Either you're tilted, you're tired, you're drunk, or you're just having a bad day, or maybe you're not focusing as much because you were doing something earlier that mentally exhausted you, or maybe you're not focusing as much because you were doing something earlier that just didn't get you in the mindset to be playing video games. Because that's another thing too. When I play video games, specifically Heroes of the Storm, and then I try to study, I have a really hard time studying because my mindset wants to change every 20 minutes, like we're getting into a new game, right? And so it's really hard for me to go and play Heroes of the Storm before I study. So I have to like play games that are like less intensive after playing Heroes of the Storm, so I could go back to studying. And that's just something that I've learned over time from being in school, to really having to deal with that. And it's the same thing as the opposite of that. If I study a lot, I have to play like one warm-up game before I get in, because when I'm studying, I'm not used to looking at the mini-map every 5 seconds. I'm not used to double-checking my team's health before I engage, or double-checking the enemy's resources before I tell my team to go in or get back. It's like I'm not used to checking 14 million things. While I'm studying, I just need to look at one thing. I need to look at what's in front of me, and I need to learn it, and I need to remember it. So you're in different states of mind, and it's so hard to remember that. So what I want you guys to do is start kind of looking at your history and tracking things. If you get 2 losses in a row, take a break, because firstly that's going to tilt you, but write down what time it is, write down what you were doing before you did that, write down all of those things. Outside of just like a lever on your team, you get 1 lever on your team, that's fine. You count that as a 30% loss. I call them 30% losses, just losses that like 30% of your games, something terrible is going to happen on your team. 30% of the games, something terrible is going to happen on the enemy team. The difference you can make is always in that 40%. You get something like that, that's okay. That happens. But if you get a game that lasts past level 20, there was something that could have been done differently on your hand to make a difference in that game. So what I recommend doing is, if you lose, start looking at it, writing down, hey, I lost a couple games this day. What happened? Did I just get tilted? Did something happen? I can show you guys one day. I can show you guys a match history that is purely tilt, and I'll show it to you guys after this game, and you guys will be like, whoa there. Like, you should have logged off way before that. And it wasn't just tilt, it was tired. I played until like 3 o'clock because I was so tilted. But it also wasn't all Storm League. I stopped playing Storm League after 3 games and just logged off because I lost 3 games in a row. One was because of a lever, so I was like, that's fine. And then I lost 2 games and I logged off. Then I started playing brawls, and I probably lost like 13 brawls in a row or something crazy, which is just insane. But that's tilt is a monster. So I really just wanted to show you guys that, explain that it is possible that you are in a rank that you actually don't belong in. But part of that rank is also understanding that. Someone who is really good at understanding and only playing when they're at their best could get to a rank higher than what they deserve to be in, just because they always played their best. In fact, I I've like done that in games. I feel like I've gotten much higher rank than I deserve to be in just because I was playing consistent and I was playing at certain times. When I was playing League of Legends, I was moving up in ranks really, really fast, much higher than I probably should have been in, just because I would always play until I got 2 losses, then I would log off. Then I would always do the same thing. When I noticed I wasn't doing the same thing every game, I would stop playing for the day. And that was another thing too. Like, I was watching this guy, I was coaching this guy, and we watched 3 replays. The first replay, he was making shot calls, he was getting camps, he was doing a bunch of stuff. By the 3rd replay, he wasn't doing any of those things. And I said, like, did you notice you didn't do that? He goes, oh, well, I can only really play, like, at this time of night, I can only play, like, 3 games. And I said, well, maybe you should play 2 games of Storm League and then 1 game of just an unranked. And something as simple as that can really change your win rates as well. So there's a lot of, like, small things that can make huge differences that it's so hard to explain because it's like, it's so easy to just blame your team and never look internally to see if that's actually you that could fix that. But yeah, it is certainly possible that that you are in a lower rank than you deserve to be, and this could be one of the major reasons why. So I highly recommend working on that and going from there. And if you guys have questions about it, toss in the comments below and throw it in my Discord. Tag me. Just go, hey, you know, I've been losing a lot because of this. Just go, can you like help me out? Like I'm not tired. I'm not whatever. And we can see what's going on. I mean, you never know. Like it's different for everyone what might be causing their win rate differences. With that being said, I will talk to you guys a little bit about this Stitches build, and I'll probably go into a full video explaining why I like this build, but I still haven't done a lot on him just because he's not very meta, and I don't really recommend people playing him too much. So the build that I like is based around your W, and it's based around just doing a wide area zoning or wide area slows. So I take Patchwork Creation so I could heal myself more. Also, when a bunch of minions die, you just gain a bunch of life. So I like that talent because it's just really nice when you're going from lane to lane because your healer doesn't need to heal you as much. I like Serrated Edge just because in W builds, honestly, neither of these actually help your W at all. Chop Chop requires too many auto attacks. I'm not going to be auto attacking a lot, so I like Serrated Edge just because it lowers the cooldown of my hook and does 5% of their maximum health. I like Blight because I'm going to be applying my damage over time to people, so I like the fact that I can heal for part of the damage I do. So that combined with my bonus healing is going to be a lot of healing if I hit a bunch of people, and I have that going in a lot of people. Plus, you can also activate it to lower people's healing, so that's not bad. I like Bile only because Gorge to me is unfun. That's just me. But I like Bile because I can just zone out these huge areas. And it's great for people like Samura who are making a bunch of clones and he can't walk in with anyone because he's going to get hit by stuff. I like Lacerate because it's going to be applying Vile Gas to everyone and lowering their armor. So you're going to be making it to where you do more damage to everyone, you're going to be lowering their healing, and you're going to be healing off of the damage you do as well. So it's just really, really nice. And then I like Pulverize, where all enemies hit by Slam are slowed by 75%, so you can just do these huge slows, slow their entire team, and set up for a really good fight for your team. So I like to start off the fights by doing usually a hook, and then I like to immediately Bile after my hook, possibly do a W after I've slowed them a little bit, and then I kind of move around their whole team, move around where they need to go, and then I'll just do Ws to slow them. Landing a W makes it really easy to land a hook. So if I land a hook to start the fight, and then I do my ult, I can usually land another hook after I do a W. So that's what I like about that build. And overall, it's just a really fun build because you're just constantly doing these huge slows, applying gas, and you're almost unkillable, honestly. You're really, really hard to kill because you heal so much. But you don't have an escape until 16 when you can just slow everyone by 75%, or unless you have Bile. Bile speeds you up by 20% and slows people, so Bile's a great escape. But I usually use Bile aggressively. Hook someone, Bile, walk through their entire team, and that's kind of my favorite way to approach it. However, that is how I recommend playing Stitches, and that's also where I would I'd highly recommend people start thinking a little bit more internally when they're looking at how to increase their win rate a little bit, especially when you're really close. Like when you're in a rank like slightly under where you want to be, That makes a huge difference, because carrying in rank gets really tough when you're around the rank that you need to be in. Even if you belong a little bit higher than it, it's really hard to do it. And then level 20, I pick up either I upgrade my ult, or I usually pick up the shambling. It just depends on if we need like that that more tankiness and the ability to just walk around their team without being slowed, or if we want to just like a longer bile. It's up to you. But yeah. Hopefully some of that helps you guys. I do recommend heading over to my Discord, and just if you have any questions about that, just toss it in there. Show the match history if you're having like a really rough time. And you might get some extra tips too. Sometimes people are just playing heroes that are hard to carry with. So what happens is like you can't really make that difference in the games that you should be able to make a difference. And then in the games that are even, like the enemies might have one player who's also trying to carry out of that rank, and then they're always making that difference and you're not. So it could just be something as simple as that. But a lot of times it's just something random that's going on. Tilt. You just get tired. Mine was just getting tired, and it's like the dumbest thing. Lag. Another thing too is like when I used to live at the apartment, I used to have my ping would go up after people started getting off work. So what I found was I started having ping that I wasn't used to whenever people got off work. So I would play during the day, and then at work or at nighttime, everyone would start bogging up the local internet server or whatever, and suddenly all my ping was bad. And sometimes it's things that you don't even think of. So start thinking a little bit more internally. If you're struggling to carry and you're just going back and forth, or you're getting big win streaks and big loss streaks, that's when you really want to look at it. If you're just going win loss, start looking at adjusting your play, your heroes, all that. But if you're going like 5 wins, 5 losses, 5 wins, 5 losses, that's probably something introspective that you need to look at. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to check out any of my other videos.